All right, we're here. SEC Media Days, Josh Pate, Late Kick. What's up, man?
Well, how baked has the side of your face gotten this week? Do you feel that you need to even out color? They got some L'Oreal like natural beige in there. That's my shade. I don't know what shade you guys are. Conversely, do you even know what I'm talking about when I ask what shade you are? Like, is that even a topic we want to broach?
Look at us. No, we don't know that stuff.
We just don't start doing interviews till 11:30 because that's when the sun is gone. So
that's a strategy that everyone on this side of the room has taken.
That's right.
You just sleep in. Yeah.
There's a lot of people complaining about, but hey, that's what we're here for. I was going to ask you, Mike. I asked Mike. I said, should I wear? I was down between two shirts.
Same.
Either I was going to put Josh Pate off Wish, or I was going to go Josh Pate stunt double.
Yeah.
So which one do you think I could have got away with?
Well, I can make either happen. I've got a T-shirt guy. So don't limit yourself on the ideas. Let that be the last obstacle in play. It's nice, though, when you thin out that wardrobe, which was my first priority when I got this job, it makes dressing so easy. These
really
people
does.
complain about fit check.
No.
Fit check is not even something I know. It's not in my vernacular. You just throw on the same black or white tee every day and go to work.
You notice me and you have the same closet, same. I have different colors
I think
of
it's
the
a little
same
different.
shirt. yeah, maybe a little more fabric in my closet, but it's the same. And then I can tell which one's older or newer just because it's kind of wore out from all the washing. So, but anyway, sorry, I don't know how we got on T-shirts, but here we are.
It's no big deal. One thing I left out in your little bio there. Enemy of Cole Kubelik. What's the deal with that guy?
Well, here's Kublik's problem. Here's one of Kublik's problems. Excuse me. They give him the big platform around here. He shows up Sunday, Monday, and he's one of us. And then something happens over the course of the week, and he gets that national airtime, and he goes from untucked polo guy to suit he probably rented guy in record time, and then it's all of a sudden it's like, hey, can you do the show, Cole? Well, did you reserve a time with me? That's not him Monday, but by the time you get to Wednesday. And so, I just ask, are we giving Cole Kubelik too big a platform? It's the kind of thing that keeps me up at night. I know there are other things going on in the world, but one of the things I worry about as we move forward is Kubelik, too big a platform. Yes, no, maybe.
And he came over here and he saw our list with your name on it, scheduled list rundown, and he literally brought up that tweet and said, What's wrong with Josh Pate here? Ask him about this.
Did he do the show, though?
He did.
Oh, that's mildly shocking.
But we had to set
But he did it his way.
Yeah, sure. You had to go through his people, didn't you? Yeah. The thing about Kubelik's assistant is it's just him with a second phone. He doesn't actually have that infrastructure.
Oh gosh! Whenever he figures out AI, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
You know?
Whenever anybody in this room gets AI figured out, everyone's in trouble.
Well, I get asked, talk about asked a lot of questions. Everybody said, hey, if you get a chance to talk to Pate. I didn't know what Jurassic Park cup water meant until I got hit with about 15 of them saying, hey, what does Pate mean here? And I'm talking about the news of potential teams heading into the SEC. Is there any steam to that? Is there any is that a possibility? I know Sankey wants to act like it's not a possibility, but do you see maybe in 5-6 years that we add any more teams to the SEC?
It's all contingent. People will accuse you of being vague on this or riding the fence or, it's none of that. There's no answer. So I had some speaking engagements over the spring where just by pure happenstance, I ended up crossing paths with a lot of the legal types that are working in that field. These are not people that particularly care about college athletics. They just happen to be working. This is the next thing that got put in front of them. And so they were really dry. They weren't emotional about it or at all, but they just kind of laid out some of the details of where things were at the time. I still think that probably, especially with Florida State, they've reached the point of no return in their mind. They've already made far too big an effort. They've invested too much time, equity, literal money to just say, oh, well, never mind, we'll stay here. They've got to have somewhere to go. So Brett McMurphy's reporting yesterday morning, I think, was pretty sound. I think that there is no path to the SEC right now. There is no path to the Big Ten right now. That may never change. They would probably be welcomed with open arms in the Big 12 right now if they were out. But see, here's the question you have to ask yourself. If the ACC dissolved, or let me put it another way, because conferences don't just magically disappear. If the exit fee were all of a sudden not astronomical, meaning more teams could afford to get out if they wanted to, well, all of a sudden you may have a mass exodus. Okay, so let's say you got Florida State, Clemson, and Miami, and North Carolina, and Virginia Tech, all just on the side of the road. Do we believe that the Big Ten and the SEC would just drive by and look and say, they got their thumbs up over there, I hope they get a ride, I can't afford to stop, I don't have time to stop? Do I really feel like it would be that way? I don't know that I feel it would be that way. I think if circumstances changed, then their opinion would change. Sankey has to say what he said. Litigiously, he has to. Tony Petitti has to say what he's saying right now. They can't afford to say anything else. They will get sued.
Yeah.
However, they may be dead serious about what they say. So my whole thing with this is you cannot be giving definitive statements. This is not the time to call your shot on this stuff. Because even if someone does call their shot and they happen to be right, it was just a guess. Someone's going to guess the right lottery numbers tonight. They didn't have guided information on it. They just happened to say something and it happened. But I do think movement is coming. Because one way or the other, either the SEC Big Ten changes their mind or the Big 12 does what they've continued to do, and that is defy expectation. And the expectation was they'd be dead by now. Yeah. And they continue to defy expectation, and then all of a sudden you're looking and you're saying Power 3, but it's not SEC Big 10 Pac-12, and it ain't SEC Big 10 ACC. It's SEC Big 10 Big 12 ends up when the dust settles being the third one.
Now, you recently took a flamethrower to me on your show.
I did.
Which I appreciate it. I appreciate
It's why I've been holding your hand under the camera this entire time.
Anybody that helps spread the word of the show, whether they hate us or not, I don't really care. And I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about your listeners, but
it's not me, it's them.
I'm just baffled by the buy-in. All these people, there's Auburn people, I don't want to mention them by name, but hey, they'll praise Hugh, they'll praise what he's doing, and then we turn the cameras off and they say, man, this is a disaster. And I don't know, why the belief in what Auburn's doing?
Okay, so I've heard the same thing.
Yeah.
So I think it's been very rocky for him behind the scenes from the time he got there. It's not unique to a new head coach. A lot of new head coaches deal with that. So I think they were actually really smart. Correct me if I'm wrong. So you were talking about how they didn't go get a quarterback, how they'll probably not be very good again this year, and a lot of people are believing in him. Okay, so I remember this now. So yeah. I thought they were smart, cerebrally smart, not going to get the quarterback. Because what I thought it was going to do is I thought it was going to falsely inflate the expectation market, and they're sitting there knowing full well we're way more than just a quarterback away. Like,
right.
Think about how different the roster and situation is that DeBoer inherits versus the one that Hugh Freeze inherits. Like, guys walk into jobs at totally different situations. So Hugh Freeze had about as much a rebuild on his hands as you could have. It's not done. They're not close to done. And so had they gone and gotten Cam Ward, paid like $1.8 million for him or whatever, they go and get him, there'd be folks at this event calling them a dark horse contender for the SEC, and they wouldn't be. They're not gonna compete. They're not gonna contend for that this year. If you do that, and then you go 7-5, folks call you a failure. This year, if they go 7-5, as is, or 8-4, they either met or slightly exceeded expectation. Then year 3, next year's the year I'll look at him and I'm going to say, there is no excuse. I'm not going to say, yeah, but like this is your team now. 3 years in, this day and age, you better have your thumbprint firmly entrenched on the program. I believe in the guy's vision. I believe in the guy's ability to evaluate and develop offensive talent. I believe ultimately in his ability to put together a coaching staff, although they swung and missed on a couple out of the gate. So long term, like the more he's there, the more I believe in him. But then I say that, and then the follow-up question I've gotten a lot is, okay, well, so that means you expect a lot from them this year, right? I don't expect much at all from them this year. If the guy's given time, I believe that he'll pull it off over there. I think the opposite. So I think they will trend up. I just don't know that this year will be like the definitive stamp of confidence that everyone wants. But 2025, I think if we're sitting here talking again, hopefully the sun is a little better, but I think I'd probably be saying much better things about their prospects in this given year.
Right. Well, I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe everyone else is right, but a lot of people point at recruiting these days.
Yeah. Did you notice? Were you here yesterday when Kirby talked? Like, did you hear what he said?
We missed most all what they say.
So, he's not the only one to do this. He's just the latest example. Pay attention when these guys who have been around the league a long time talk about Hugh Freeze, because they all say a version of the same thing. They all say when he gets his guys, like when they keep saying when he gets his this and that. And I think it's because everyone knows what the behind the scenes is at Auburn, because Hugh talks to everybody. Mm-hmm. So it's not a mystery what it's like over there. Those guys who have been around a long time, those are the ones who have the least doubt that he'll ultimately be a problem. It's just they also understand he doesn't have that right now. And so we're gonna get ours against them while we can. And Georgia's never gonna take a backseat to Auburn, but Auburn may very well get to be where they are perennially competitive with those big teams again, and they're certainly not right now.
I'm just worried that, again, you sign all these great players, particularly at receiver, and if you can't get them the ball, and we're disappointing on the field, they'll leave.
It's valid. You better be smart with the way you recruited them, sold them, and signed them. Mm-hmm. You better have incentivized a reason to stay. Right. And that's the devil's in the details on that.
Has Hugh DM'd you before?
The DMs, I don't think he's ever hopped into. Maybe an old school text.
Yeah.
I almost would prefer the DMs.
Active coaches right now in the SEC 16. Out of those 16, you don't have to give names. How many have DM'd you?
DM, I don't know. A few. Most of them prefer to do the text thing. Some of them do the WhatsApp thing. Yeah. So it's encrypted. So you can't be screenshot. But I'm trying to think.
Different text, or no? Has Saban texted you yet? Now that he's figured it out.
Oh no,
apparently?
very few people have gotten that.
I wonder if it's just like one big word. Like everybody starts with those growing pains. Well, that's back when you had to do key 9 words. But my mom, when she first started texting, it was one long, and then you had to kind of
decipher what she was saying.
Does his text have an identity to it? Everyone's texting patterns develop an identity over time.
Yeah.
Is he a total rogue any given day? Could be any given thing, or does he? When he goes all caps, is there a reason? When he hyphenates, is there a reason?
Is there an
does
emoji?
He even know how to do it? Does he know about the alternate keyboards? Yeah. I mean, does he? I don't know. No, I have not gotten text from Nick Saban.
Yeah.
When Nick wants to talk to you, and you open the door and there he is, or there one of his people are saying, "Coach is outside in the backseat. He'd like a word with you."
How hard do you think it was listening? Because they're in the same room. I would imagine the pressure was on DeBoer, saying the right things. He kind of stuttered a little bit out on the main gate, and I don't know if that was more about the size of the crowd or the fact Nick Saban's back there in the corner just watching him. But what do you think's going through Saban's mind? He's coached his whole life. This is his life, and now he's watching somebody else do it.
It's the thing I'd like to know the most about him. Really, you got to cut a guy open to know that. It's even if you were to ask him right now and he gave you an open answer, there's always a little part of you keep to yourself.
Yeah.
And so even if he's very public about it, there's a part of him that he wakes up on day 3 of this event. He may be shaving in the morning, maybe, finishing brushing his teeth, look up in the mirror and saying, I ought to be 2 weeks away from camp. Instead, I'm about to go talk about Jeff Lebby. Like, I know this is my choice. I know I did this. He may love it. You could love what you're doing right now, but also be embarking on your first season, not doing the job you've done for 4 decades, and you may scratch your neck a little bit. You may be checking your watch a little bit. There's almost too much downtime. I think he probably looks around and all these folks talk about the grind of media and working these media days, and he's got to look around saying, when does it happen? When does the grind part happen? It's just sitting here talking. That's all it is. And we're not really competing against anyone. Right. I'm working at ESPN. Everyone's watching us. What feeds that desire? Yeah. What fills the competitive bucket? What fills it? You better get it elsewhere, is all I can say.
So Nick Saban, the next Florida coach, is that what you're telling us?
let's just go the next SEC coach. It could be Florida. It could be. You know what I think you ought to do is open the most successful consulting service the sport has ever seen. Because I remember talking to a coordinator that was recently in the sport and recently stepped down. He said, I couldn't believe my phone. The second that I retired, I've got requests from all over the country to do consultation, and this is a mid-six-figure type guy. He said, it quickly dawned on me that I can work a fraction of the time, never have to talk into a microphone publicly, and I could probably make close to what I was making as a coordinator just instructing and giving advice and, being home by 5 o'clock every day. That consultation world in our industry, in the coaching industry, there is such a big market for established voices who have done it and who have proven themselves. Because when you raise expectation level, you erode patience and you erode longevity and time. And so everyone knows they don't have the same runway you used to have. And so you got to bring in as much help as you can bring in. And if you got a grizzled veteran of 4 decades in the industry, no matter what industry it is, that person's perspective is going to be in high demand.
Do you think Nick Saban, if he was, he'll never say this, but in his heart, you think he wants DeBoer not to be as good, just to further state he's the greatest coach of all time?
I don't think anything Kalen DeBoer can do could match what he did. Right. I'm not a believer that anyone, given any length of time, could ever duplicate what he did, because I think the sport has changed too much. That's not even to mention just the sheer greatness, the visionary element, the understanding how to go from good to great. He totally reestablished a standard in the sport, not just at Alabama. It was badly needed there. He redefined what you mean when you say elite in college football. So I just don't know that you do that. And then you also have revenue sharing coming. You've got what the portal is, what NIL has been. There's so many mechanisms now that are built to chop off the top of the tree, so to speak, that weren't around as much when he was there. And also what he mastered was dealing with what I came to call the consequences of success. And that's the pile of crap that appears only when you win. Now, see, the misnomer is it's the biggest struggle when you're losing. Then once you win, then a lot of those struggles disappear. That's partly true. Some of the struggles disappear. But then there are new struggles that replace those struggles that only the winners deal with. Only winners know what it's like for complacency to set in. Only winners know what it's like for a junior quarterback to be a Heisman finalist, and then he focuses on himself the entire summer, and then you come back and you got a self-centered player that was all team the year before, and that's only because of your success. I'm not talking about Milroe, by the way. I just mean in general, that stuff happens. Urban Meyer dealt with it, and it burned him out. Jimbo dealt with it, and he never approached that again. We've seen coaches deal with that stuff, and they deal with it once. Dabo won a couple of titles. Not over the cliff, but subtly that program's regressed. He dealt with it every year. He, on average, won a title every second or third year, so they were always at the top, and they never faded. They were never other than the top program in the sport as long as he was there. I don't think anyone will ever duplicate that. Over a decade and a half, I don't think anyone will ever do that. So I think he's rooting for DeBoer. I think also him being involved in the search for his replacement and DeBoer keeping on a lot of his staff behind the scenes, names you wouldn't recognize. I think that was a real show of faith that helped DeBoer. It wasn't like he was doing Saban a favor. It helped DeBoer, but I thought it also endeared him, sort of the handing off of the baton, so to speak.
Yeah.
Do you think because of that true grind of college football coaching, do you think that we are losing some of the best coaches to the NFL? Because there is, college football never turns off. At least there is I don't want to say home life balance, but there is a little bit more luxury being in the NFL. Do you think we're losing some of those big coaches that we've maybe had in our past?
I think we have. I think a big rule just got passed that's not being talked about a lot. I've heard no one bring it up this week. That's going to be a real game changer. When they passed the rule where your support staff, your off-field analysts and whatnot can coach on field, total game changer. Because what that does now is it does not make you wear 3 hats. There's a world now, because I can go, if I'm Alabama, if I'm Georgia, if I'm Florida State, and I got the money, I can go hire 37 more staffers if I want to. And a lot of them are coordinators at the G5 level, and they're coming up here to take a linebacker analyst's job title. But really what they're doing is they're getting Georgia coach on their resume. They're coaching on the field. If I want to, I can send them on the road recruiting.
Yeah.
So let's say I've got a star defensive line coach that had been a liability in recruiting. Well, now I can keep all the positives of him. He can still be my defensive line coach, but I can tell him just focus on coaching, because your analyst is going to be the guy who recruits defensive line for us, and you got to work hand in hand with him. But we're going to send him out on the road. Well, all of a sudden you're not on the road anymore. All of a sudden you've greatly alleviated some of the burden that was on your plate, some of the burden that up until recently we were talking about as reason for burnout, because you're expecting unrealistic things from coaches. That is a huge deal. Now here's the downside of that. It means that much like rosters of G5 teams have been rated, now their coaching rosters will be rated more so than they ever were, because it used to be, if I'm a coordinator at the G5 level, I'm only going to take a coordinator position at the Power 5 level, or maybe a high-level position coach role. Well, now those jobs don't even have to open. Now they could just go hire you and say, you're our defensive line coach in waiting. Even though the title's not the same, you're going to come here and make more money. But more importantly, you're going to jump over that river that's really hard to cross, that lower-level college football to higher-level college football river. We're going to bring you over it. And in due time, if you're worth your weight in whatever, you'll get a job. But in the meantime, you don't have to worry. Like, once you're in the boat, once you're in the big Power 4 boat, you're in the boat.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of guys this December and this coming January, after the season's over, they will take that opportunity, and you'll see a lot of those FCS and G5 coaching staffs further rated. Every move that's been made lately in the sport has victimized that level of football. I don't know that stops. And it's not up to the Power 4 teams to apologize for it. It's up to decision makers to make sure you got a climate where that kind of football is sustainable.
Well, I know you can't control it, but do you like the vision of the future of college football, or do you think we're going the wrong way?
It's a mixed bag. There's a ton I don't like. But, Sankey talked about this the other day. You can either do what we can afford to do, which is sit here behind a microphone and talk about all the things you don't like and how you wish it would go back to this, or you could understand the role and the job. His job is either we've got to make moves ahead of the curve, or we're behind the curve. I don't think he has very easy decisions. I don't have to like all of them, but I don't have all the details either. Texas and OU joining this conference was a perfect example of a headline that I saw, and it blew me away. And then I said, why are we doing this? This is going to destroy a conference, because at the time I thought that was a death blow to the Big 12, and it ended up being a death blow to somebody. It was just a chain reaction. But what you may not know, and what I've come to find out talking to more people, is the situation wasn't they went out on the prowl and said, Texas OU, you want to come here? Yes. Okay, 2024, show up at our door. What it was is Texas OU realizing we want to move. Going and asking the SEC, you guys want us? If you don't, that's okay. But just know we're going to the Big Ten next. So we're moving one way or another. At that point, Greg Sankey, even if he's the most anti-expansion person in the world, has to say yes, because the alternative is he goes back to his bosses, university presidents, and he has to answer to them why two of the most valuable commodities in college athletics knocked on his door, and he said thanks but no thanks, and they ended up at their biggest competitor, the Big Ten. That's how you get fired. Yeah. That's how you're out of a job as a college football conference commissioner. So like me personally, if this was a video game or a simulation and I got to set it up, I wouldn't have hardly any of this conference realignment. I love regionality. I cannot stand that Oregon's playing a conference game in Piscataway, New Jersey. But that's not the way the decisions are actually made. What bothers me the most about the general climate is when you start, like Mike asked me a second ago, about where the ACC is going to go. And we were talking about that earlier. You're asking me, well, what about all of the changes that are being made? I can like some of them and not like some of them, but you guys tell me, when's the last time you read a story or listened to a show or looked at a breaking news headline about these big changes and you heard the word player or fan mentioned at all? What it is it's a sport. College football is what it is because of fans. If it wasn't, it would be lacrosse. It would be just another college sport, but it's not a big revenue generator because not enough people watch it. It is what it is because people watch it, and these people have the jobs they have because there's a need for it because the sport is so big. The sport is great because the players make it great, and the fans prop it up. Neither of those are involved in the decision-making equation, and instead, you've got people making the decisions that were never responsible for building it at all. They've come along, and whether it be the last 10 years or the last 10 months, they've been given authoritative jobs, and they're making the decisions. And sometimes, to sound 5 years old, it's just not fair.
Last thing for you, Josh. Really appreciate your time. This should be a really good year for SEC quarterbacks. So which one of these is most believable at the end of the season will be regarded as like a top 3 quarterback, which means probably had one hell of a year. We got Nico, Jackson Arnold, Garrett Nussmeier, or Connor Wigman.
Nussmeier. Nico's got the highest upside. I've got a belief in Nussmeier because he strikes me as the guy that once his career ends, we look back on it, and that's a dude where when you cut him open, purple and gold bled out. Had every reason to leave. He would have been starting long before this had he left. One of the last of a dying breed of that sort. There's that intangible. You guys know that. You watch every game on Saturday just like I do. You know that there are times and there are guys where you look at and there's this little extra. There's the guy that's willing to not just look in the fan, but like push his face into the fan for the team. That's the way he's made. He's got good enough tools, not elite, good enough. His peak will probably be in college. Probably not a guy we're going to watch 10 years in the NFL, but like he just bleeds that university. That's Garrett Nussmeier to me. That stuff shows up in about 3 or 4 moments that end up being the difference between 6-6 and 9-3, or 7-5 and 10-2. I don't know if he's going to light up the stat sheet. They got a good offensive line. They think they backfilled the receiver position well enough. Like he won't have porous numbers. Mm-hmm. But there's an intangible factor with Nussmeier that I think may put him over the top in that conversation. And one you didn't mention is Mertz, because he's a total afterthought, because his team's a total afterthought. If I put Graham Mertz on a lot of these contending teams, we would have upgraded their quarterback position. People just wouldn't realize it. Dude's a good player. He's a really good player. I don't know that he's going to get any kind of accolade this year, but having him stay around. You think Florida's going to have a bad year this year? Imagine if they didn't have Graham Mertz. That over-under win total would be 2.5 or 3.5 instead of 4.5 or 5.5.
All right, Josh, really appreciate you. Tell our audience, they already know already, but how to follow you, how to find the show.
Well, if you like the video stuff, some people do, Late Kick on YouTube. If you like driving around or working out, or you just don't think I look good, that's fine. There's a healthy amount of folks to fit that description too. Late Kick on the podcast feeds. It's just like this show. Wherever you want it, it can be found.
Yeah. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you,
Appreciate it, guys.